Hello, hello, hello. Test, test, test. We are live. Hello, fruity cuties. Wow, my model crashed before the stream even started. Oh man. Okay, give me a second. But hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We'll be yapping about some big changes in a card game that's very near and dear to my heart, Magic the Gathering. Bagel, thank you also for the 29 months. Oh my goodness. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Absolute living legend. Oh, sorry, my stomach's a little weird today, but I've still felt like I needed to say something rather than nothing. So, here I am, yapping away as I usually do. But for those of you who are here but might not be familiar with the Commander format, that's okay. I'm going to be going through a full timeline of the events that have led up to this ban, or this like series of controversies, the repercussions that this could potentially have for the community going forward, and why this is indeed such a big deal for the format that a very large portion of the Magic community, in fact a majority of the Magic community these days enjoys. So to begin, we'll start at the beginning. I mean, if you don't know what Magic the Gathering is, I don't know exactly what to tell you. It's the world's biggest card game, the world's original card game. It set the stage for trading card games and has been the base of almost every single trading card game moving forward. It is simple to learn, but has a level of complexity so deep that even computers are unable to play the format realistically. Like, people have tried to create computers that can play the format well or optimally, and it just doesn't work because of the complexities, intricacies, and sheer number of cards that exist within this game that has been out for over 30 years now at this point, continuing to release new cards. So, but in 2011, about 15-ish years into Magic's lifespan, there's always been like some offshoots of like any card game. People have different rules. Like if you go and sit down and you play Uno with someone, they're going to have different rules than the next person that plays Uno with you. And Commander, as a card game, as it is at its base, has the same sort of thing, where there are alternative formats that people have invented over... Why was the stream paused? Hello! Welcome, Insanity. But Commander... spawned out of someone deciding to make use of a subtype of creatures called legendary creatures, where people wanted a deck that was more consistent, or not necessarily more consistent, but based around a character or creature that they really liked. The original name for the format was called EDH, or Elder Dragon Highlander, because it was centered around people picking between the 5 Elder Dragons, which were the original commanders or helms of the deck. Essentially, a commander deck is built around one creature that you particularly like. It has to be a legendary creature. And so you can pick a creature. Some of my decks, I don't have any examples like off of hand, but essentially it allows you to create a deck that has some sort of consistency outlet because of an area called the command zone, where you can play your creature from at any point of the game, essentially acting like this creature starts the game in your hand, meaning that you can build around it more consistently, which is kind of nice. But it slowly accumulated momentum over the years. People started playing it. People started doing it independently, and it just grew. It's a community driven format. It's a community founded format. It was just people making it for fun because they wanted to play the game in a different way. And it turned out that by playing the game in this way, they found a ton of enjoyment with it, and so did a lot of other people. part of the reason, I mean, aside from the customization that Commander provides, it also provides an excellent way to engage in Magic with a group of individuals. Most of the time, Magic is played in a 1v1 format, as with most card games are. It is very rare to find card games that you can play in multi-person formats, like people 2v2 or 4v4. Some card games literally cannot facilitate this, like Yu-Gi-Oh! It is very hard to facilitate something like that in a game that is as combo-heavy as Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, which is part of the charm that Commander brings, is that people can come down, they can just have some fun on a Saturday night or at a local game store and can play a format that is facilitating of that sort of community aspect, because people can power check each other by, if one player is kind of getting ahead, you can talk with other players at the table and be like, hey, you guys want to gang up? Whereas like if it's a 1v1 format, it's whoever has the better deck is winning, or whoever has more experience is winning, which is not very conducive to I don't know, introducing new people to the game, in my opinion. But and I think that's the power of Commander and why people really enjoy it and took to it like a fish to water. And the important part is that Commander was formed independently of Magic the Gathering. It was not owned by Magic the Gathering. It was managed independently by another organization called the Commander's Rule Committee, Commander Rules Committee, which was a group of 5 individuals that basically were in touch with the community on what was good for the format and what was not good for the format. As with basically any format in card games, people make mistakes. Wizards has printed some cards that were incredibly broken at the beginning. Like, I don't know. So this is the Commander ban list. So like you could see Ancestral Recall, or I guess the poster child of broken cards, Black Lotus itself. If you don't understand the resource system in Magic the Gathering, this in the top corner is an indication of how much mana you have to pay to play a card. All cards are played using mana. You can see Black Lotus requires no mana, but its effect adds 3 mana of a single color of your choice to a mana pool. Paying 0 to get 3, or essentially spawning something out of nothing, is broken. Hence why the card is banned. So it's... And you need to do this, or otherwise all decks are going to be built around particular things or particular strong cards, and people who don't have those cards are going to be at an insane disadvantage, because some cards are just flat out better than others, and some are just flat out way better than others. Although they will ban cards outside of just super powerful cards that are not conducive to good play or community play at the table. For example, Iona Shield of Emeria is banned because when Iona Shield of Emeria enters the battlefield, you choose a color. Your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. When you play Commander, your deck, the amount of colors of mana that you can play are determined by the mana cost of your commander. In this case, if Iona Shield of Emeria was my commander, it would be white. White would be all cards in my deck would have to be white or colorless. Now that means that if anyone at the table is playing Iona, they can shut down another player that is playing a single color deck. So if someone is playing a commander that is only one color, someone can just shut them out of the game permanently and they can't do anything. Not conducive to good play. That's why they're banned. Not because they're super strong, but because the rule committee is in touch with the state of play, or what the vibes are, for lack of a better term, of how people are interacting at local game stores. Like Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Golos is a 5-color commander, as you can see it down here: white, blue, black, red, green. And the reason Golos was banned is not because he was necessarily overpowered, but he was just the best option for a 5-color deck. If you weren't playing at the time, which I was, when you would go to a local game store and you would sit down at a table, if a deck was 5 colors, it was playing Golos. Simply because Golos can let you find land cards, which are the resources that you use to get mana for Magic, for playing cards. Golos was just too good for that sort of format. He was generically good, and he needed to be banned in order for the format to have more variety and therefore become more fun. Because when a format gets stale, when just you see the same cards being played over and over and over again, that's not conducive to a good environment. So you ban people will ban based on they'll ban based on fun, and they'll ban based on power, and that's just the way it's been for years and years and years and years. You can see the ban list goes all the way back to December 2019. That was when it was officially created. And there's been, there was bitterness over Golos being banned. Some people just didn't understand why Golos was banned, but it was just, but for the most part, the Commander's Rules Committee has been making decisions that have been received well by individuals in the Magic community because they've been well in touch with what's going on. That was until a couple days ago, September 23rd, 2024. Yes, and they also give a write-up of the reason why they're banned. Yes, thank you, Insanity. It is true. They do specify why things are being banned, which is also good, whereas and they do a good job of it. They're very responsive because they're community-driven. It's just 5 people that are not paid by Wizards of the Coast. They're not paid. Note, they are individual people that are playing the game and doing it out of the goodness of their hearts because they care. That's part of the reason why it was so good. Because it was people who played the game, people who loved the game, balancing the game for others who love the game. Now, since the time of, to preface this statement and why it was so impactful, in recent years, ever since the pandemic, I would say, card games and collectibles in general have become much more of a perceived investment strategy, thanks in no part to YouTubers like Logan Paul buying up insane swaths of Pokemon cards to open them on stream and whatnot. And I don't know exactly if that's the only person to blame for that sort of thing, but I'm gonna blame Logan Paul because I hate his guts. So, but anyway. Ever since the pandemic, that's the direction that card games have been moving in. And as a part of that, as with all card games, there are very expensive cards that will be present within formats, especially within Commander, because Commander is what is called an eternal format. Cards from the beginning of time, from the beginning of Magic the Gathering, can be played in Commander today. So you could be playing against a card when did Magic the Gathering release? Like 1996, 1995? I can't remember exactly. But you can play a card from that time period, 1993. Thank you. You can play a card from that time period, assuming it's not banned, because a lot of cards back then were very broken. But you could play a card from 1993 in a deck that has cards today from 2024. Bucky, you need to stop. Thank you. You needed to not be sitting in my book box. So, and as a part of that, older cards that don't see reprints or are rarer will accumulate in value, not only because they are rare, but because they are played in the format as well. There are some cards that are incredibly good, like, let's find some expensive cards on, oh, this isn't a very good, but these cards basically were incredibly expensive cards that were very good in the format, and they were banned as of September 23rd, 2024. If you want an idea of how expensive these were, we can look at Mana Crypt specifically. Mana Crypt, the more non-rare version, was going for fluctuating between about $180 and $190 dollars. And I mean, it's a good card. You can see based on how Black Lotus was good. It's a 0 mana artifact that comes down and it gives you 2 colorless mana. You are getting 2 mana for the cost of zip. However, I guess there is also the thing that, like, you have to flip a coin, and if you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you, but that's besides the point. That's neither here nor there. So, anyway, so this ban targeted some very particular cards. Only tied to mine once. Same. A non-factor in a 40 life format. Yes, exactly. So, the ban announcement of September 23rd, 2024 included 4 cards that were very present in the format or in the minds of players. Dockside Extortionist, which is a 2-mana goblin pirate that when it enters the battlefield, it creates X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. This means every opponent. Artifact is a subtype of card that is very prevalent in Magic the Gathering because oftentimes artifacts provide static effects that blanket over the field, or they produce mana, meaning they are used very commonly in high-level powered decks in order to generate advantage for players and to progress the state of the game. Dockside benefits from other people playing those cards in addition to looping to playing Dockside in response to another person's Dockside. So the best counter to Dockside Extortionist is to have another Dockside Extortionist, meaning it is a card that you want to play if your deck has the color red. Therefore, and also because it was printed very limited, its first printing was only in a Commander starter deck from Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast is the creator of Magic the Gathering. They eventually started creating products for Commanders, seeing it was very popular. But I mean, Commander has still been managed by the community, which is part of the reason why Wizards has been kept in check up to this point. Because even if Wizards prints a strong card, the Commander Rules Committee can respond and say, nah, we don't want that, and we can ban it. So Wizards is kept in check by that. Because if they print the super expensive card, the super rare card that they're trying to push to chase because it's strong, if the Rules Committee determines that that card is too good or too limited, then the Commander Rules Committee can stop that. And that, I think, is part why Dockside Extortionist came here. Dockside is too good for a card that is too rare. Because Dockside is, you want a Dockside in response to another Dockside. Everyone wants a Dockside. Dockside is very limited. It was originally printed only in a Commander starter deck that was never reprinted. Then it came back in Double Masters, but that wasn't enough because still everyone wants a Dockside. So Dockside was very, 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 very pricey. In addition, Jeweled Lotus falls under that as well. Jeweled Lotus is a special case because it's a card that's developed specifically for Commander. We were just looking at Black Lotus. Black Lotus is the titular card of Magic the Gathering. It is probably the card that you know about Magic if you've never heard it before. Jeweled Lotus was a card designed specifically for Commander format, which is it's a Black Lotus for your Commander. You pay 0. You pay 0 and you get 3 mana of 1 color, but you can spend it only to cast your Commander. Still great advantage, a very good card, a much more rare card than most things, but still, you can see how it's strong. We already talked about Mana Crypt. And then Nadu Winged Wisdom is a special case because and this goes in part with the way that Commander is balanced, is Wizards will try to push cards very hard. They specified specifically in a response to this card that Nadu was a mistake and it was designed for Commander, but it was released, notably, in a set targeted at another format called Modern. Modern is another non-rotating format that is played in a traditional sense where it is a 40-card deck where you can play up to 4 copies of a card, and you don't have a Commander. So Nadu was a card that was meant for Commander that was released in a set that was not Commander. And it was also poorly designed and not tested on top of that. Because although you might read Nadu's text and it will say, whenever a creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield, otherwise put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. You might think, okay, that's only twice each turn. I'll only get 2 cards, I'll only get 2 lands. But it's creatures you control. It's not just Nadu. So if you can keep creating creatures from effects and targeting them with things that cost 0, like 0 cost equipments, you can essentially create an incredibly slow, grindy gameplay loop, a non-deterministic combo that ends in either you winning the game or playing a 40-minute turn that your opponent might just want to scoop off of anyway. This was not conducive to good play in Modern, and it was not conducive to good play in Commander, and therefore it was banned based off of those things. Nadu everyone hated Nadu. Nadu needed to go. However, and Dockside needed to go as well. Dockside was, I don't think anyone was too mad about Dockside. The issue comes with Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt. Because Jeweled Lotus is a very prominent base card of the Commander format. It's a representative of the format. When people think of Commander, they often think of the Jeweled Lotus because it was in one of the first main Commander sets, and was a chase card that has been pushed pretty recently as another Commander Master set came out. And Jeweled Lotus was one of the chase cards in the set. There were some very special printings of it that were very rare, very expensive, that people wanted to get their hands on. And this was released only within like the last year or so. And the same, whether it should have been printed or not is neither here nor there. I think Jeweled Lotus is a relatively balanced card simply because it is 3 mana of only 1 color. So if you are playing Jeweled Lotus, you want to only play it in a deck that has a commander that's maybe 2 colors, maybe 3 colors, ideally 1 color. And when you are limiting your color, the color options of a deck, you are also limiting the cards you can play in a deck. And therefore, I think that balances Jeweled Lotus. Yes, you can loop it. I know it's 3 mana, but because the mana has to be put into your commander and it has to be 1 color, that balances the card, in my opinion. I can see why it was banned, though. That's the thing. So, but it was a commander only card, and now that it's banned, not playable anywhere else, which is led to and then before I go into the next thing, Mana Crypt, also very expensive card, was just reprinted in Double Masters. It was reprinted in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, which was a very popular set last year. There were multiple printings of it that were very, very, like, people wanted to get after. There was multiple colors. It was really pretty, and it was a good card. People play it in Commander because they want to and because it's strong. However, now that these bans come out, the price of these cards that have just been printed, like very recently been printed, tanks immensely, almost having the value of cards like Mana Crypt. Jeweled Lotus, I would imagine, was even worse. Yeah, you can see here, not like the most expensive card in the world, but still halved in value basically, after that printing after that banning came out. So people who bought a lot of these cards or owned these cards were not very happy. Yeah, Crypt is still playable. Jeweled Lotus is not. It is legal in other formats, and there is a very niche combo that you can do with it to turn the mana into actually functional mana for things that aren't a commander, but it's so niche that the card is basically unplayable. So people who owned these cards were very frustrated, as you can see, or as you would see. If you had a card that was very expensive and it lost 50% of its value overnight, simply because this ethereal person decided that the card was, quote, too strong after it existed in the game for years up to this point. Mana Crypt has been around since almost the beginning of the game itself, and Jeweled Lotus has been around as far as the Commander format has been incredibly popular. And so, because these cards have both been incredible staples of the format and long-time investment opportunities, quote unquote, aside from just being powerful cards, people were pretty mad about these cards being banned, especially as they were just reprinted as well. So it felt like Wizards was possibly like trying to get rid of these cards before the banning was coming out, and they felt cheated. And whether or not that's the case, I mean, it's conspiracy. Like, the rules committee does consult with Wizards of the Coast, and in response to the backlash that came out online, because this was huge news. And in response to the backlash, the rules committee put out this document, answer like as a FAQ on what happened with these bans. And they specified that they didn't sell cards before the banning till it lost value. I mean, you can't prove that, but I would imagine that the whole colluding with Wizards thing was dumb. I mean, I think it's dumb as well. It does seem really weird that it happened, but I'll revisit this point later. So, will the RC roll back these changes? No, they're not going to roll it back. They did not decide to roll it back. It's very hard to, once the Band-Aid's taken off, they can't put the Band-Aid back on. That would be even more detrimental in terms of like trust for the community. They acknowledge that they could have given more advance, especially in cards that are that expensive. They talk about potentially doing a watch list. Why they didn't ban one at a time, because they just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off, and they wanted to fix what they saw was wrong with the community. So, wrong with the game at the time. They were expensive cards that were shaping formats, and play was very molded around them. And so if you had one of these cards, you were in the good. You were getting real strong, real good momentum. Hey, Giddy Gibby, welcome. Oh yeah. But I mean, like, yeah, here, did Wizards of the Coast know these cards might be banned when they sold them in 2023? They discuss concerns with WotC about it, but they say that the ban was a very recent decision and was not a part of that at all. They did not ban the cards because they were expensive. They specify, as I just said, that the cards were expensive because they were good. They were rare to begin with. Mythic rares are printed at a statistical value within sets. Like, I don't know what it is. I think when you open a pack, there's like I don't know what the distribution is for commons, uncommons, rares, and mythic rares, but that consistency doesn't change across sets. It just, these cards feel more rare because people want to play them, and therefore they keep the cards that are these cards that are good. Yeah, and they also become more expensive because Wizards refuses to reprint. But Jepter Ross, hello, long time no see. How's it going? But there's also a competitive format of Commander. Commander is played often at a casual level, and a lot of these cards are played in a competitive level of Commander. And they specify that they didn't worry about that because they're focused on the casual aspect. If anything, I think CEDH should be its own game. But CC to listen to, thank you. That means a lot to me. I'm glad. I've been told I should be like a announcer or something, so I'm glad I can put that to use talking about nerd games instead of sports games, because I don't think I'd be a good sports announcer. So but essentially they then they talk about a couple other things, like, are the other expensive cards safe from being banned? Yes, but absolutely not beyond reproach, yada yada yada. They're not going to paint themselves into a corner. They had to back up what they were saying because the backlash from the community was incredibly immense. There were conspiracy theories out the wazoo, people who had bought these cards thinking that they would never go down in value, that they would never be banned because they've been staples of the format for so long. Were losing their they were losing their minds on Twitter, and were coming out, and whether I saw it or not, I didn't see it. I saw people having backlash responses to these, but apparently and it doesn't surprise me because people, when their money is intact, and they're also social recluse nerds on the internet who don't have any empathy for other individuals. Card game communities are pretty bad about this in general, in my personal opinion, but there's always bad batches in every sort of community that you can find yourself in. People lashed out in response to even this, to the point that the community felt like it was very up in arms. No one knew it was good. There was talks about, like, if the rules committee was even playing the game. Was the rules committee colluding with Wizards of the Coast? And apparently has also led to death threats towards the Commander Rules Committee. These 5 individuals that are managing this game mode that is loved by the community as a whole, the most popular game mode of the most popular card game of all time, were being harassed to the point that, as of today, this announcement came out from Wizards of the Coast. And I think it's just... I'll just read it, because I think they summarize what's going on particularly well, and I think they reflect the sentiments that I have. As much as I have quarrels with Wizards of the Coast, they summarize it very well. So, the past week has been tumultuous for Commanders fans, members of the Commander Rules Committee, and the Magic community as a whole. Along the way, we've seen players and fans share a diverse range of passionate opinions, far too many of which were harmful or malicious. Below, and over the next few days and weeks, we will be discussing quite a bit about Commanders, starting with the most pressing. Over the past week, where the conversation has escalated, culminating with unacceptable personal threats to the safety of our members of the Rules Committee. This is something we will not tolerate. No matter how you feel about something in Magic, it is never appropriate to threaten somebody. Everyone at Wizards of the Coast is united in this front, and we will not hesitate to take action against individuals who threaten to harm community members or employees. This week has also demonstrated the truly monumental task that is faced by the Commander Rules Committee. The Commander Rules Committee is made up of 5 talented, caring individuals, all with other jobs and lives, which they must balance with managing the most popular format in Magic. It results in incredible amounts of work, time spent deliberating, and exposure to the public. Nobody deserves to feel unsafe for supporting the game they love. Fortunately, the task of managing Commander has far outgrown the scope and safety of being attached to any 5 people. So today, in partnership with the members of the existing Rules Committee, we are announcing that the Rules Committee is giving management of the Commander format to the game design team of Wizards of the Coast. This means that now this community created, driven, managed format that outgrew the game that it spawned from has been now brought back into under control of the company that spawned it, in response to the backlash that was directed towards these members of the Rules Committee. So I'll start with the positives of this. 5 people who just want to play a game that's fun do not have the ability to back up what they say against a mob of millions of individuals who disagree with what they say. Wizards of the Coast is a company. They are a group with money behind them, with Hasbro behind them, who can engage in litigation against people who engage in unsavory behavior towards members of their staff. And with them being in charge of Commander now, they can take the brunt of that backlash, and it doesn't have to be directed at individuals who are just trying to make a game better. But in my opinion, that's where the good ends. Because this, in my opinion, is the death of the Commander format as we know it. It has been managed and kept in check by that balance between Wizards of the Coast and the community as a whole. Because Wizards can't just print whatever the hell they want. Because before, if they printed something that was absurd, the Rules Committee, which is independent of Magic and has no monetary incentive for a card being played or not played or anything related to that. If Wizards decides to push a card insanely hard just to make a quick buck, the Rules Committee could step in and say, no, not legal in Commander. You can't play that. Even if it was designed for Commander, even if Wizards put all their eggs in one basket, you can't do it. You can't play that card. But now, if Wizards is the one in charge, there's no one to stop that. Yeah, it's like, hey boss, can we ban this? No, we gotta sell packs. And this loops back to what I talked about earlier. Did WotC know these cards might be banned when they sold them in 2023? Yes, this was a conspiracy theory. Yes, it was an unhinged conspiracy theory. But it's not really unhinged now. In the future, this is something that could happen. Not to say that it will, not to say that I know it will, but Wizards of the Coast does not have very good record in terms of being in touch with their community or making decisions that are focused towards the health of the game as opposed to monetary gain on their behalf. It is known well by individuals who are within the monetary sphere or within the investment sphere. If you're not familiar with this, that's okay. But Hasbro does not make much money. They are very reliant on Wizards of the Coast for a majority of their funds and for a majority of their company's income, because the toy company, like toys, are not a very good market to get money through. So there's so much pressure on Wizards of the Coast, for better or for worse, to sell as much product for as high a price as possible and to milk the community for every last penny that they can. And whether you want to acknowledge that they are doing this or not, I'm sorry, it's the reality of capitalism and the business that we live under. Also, hi Star the Fanboy, welcome. And thank you for the sub, welcome. I appreciate it. So sounds like a fan-made game would be the solution to a company ruining their game. Yeah, but it's just always been a fan-made game. And now that it's not a fan-made game, and now, like, this is the reason why Commander wasn't online. Like, Wizards had to create their own version of Commander called Oathbreaker, called Brawl, which was like Commander, but it wasn't Commander, because Wizards can't manage the Commander format, but now they can. So this power balance is no longer kept in check. Wizards is no longer kept in check by the community. This was the last grip that the community had on this multi-million-dollar corporation that really has only demonstrated that they have money in mind. A prime example of this was to celebrate 30 years of Magic the Gathering, of people pouring their lives, their souls, their passion into this game that they loved for years and years and years, was to sell these boxes, note the price, $999, for 4 packs of randomly selected cards of the first set of the game that were not playable in any format. They were proxies. You could print a Black Lotus off of your computer and it would have the same playability and collectible value as these cardboard chunks that come in this $99 box. What a celebration of the largest card game ever to exist. The card game that set the footing for card games to come from here on out, by a company that only wanted to milk product, milk the community for their money, by selling a quote-unquote limited product that had no value aside from Wizards saying it did. It was not a game piece, it was simply a money grab, and you can't deny it. And now this company that has thrown the goodwill of its individuals that have enjoyed the game to the curb is now going to be in charge of managing this one format that the community had a grip on, had a hold on, had Wizards of the Coast in check. And I don't know what that's going to happen. If Wizards is smart, they won't fuck this up. Because if they fuck this up, there's no going back. They already have demonstrated that they are greedy, that they are only in it for the money, and that they will turn on a dime on the community if it incentivizes their pocketbooks. Yeah, there's a chance it works out, but I don't have faith. I don't have faith. I don't have faith in Wizards of the Coast to demonstrate restraint in not printing cards that are going to insanely skyrocket the momentum of the game towards, hey, this new set just came out. I need to buy all these cards and replace the old cards in my deck because they're not good enough anymore. My example of this is if we look at Yu-Gi-Oh! And I know some people really like Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've really enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh! The thing is that when Yu-Gi-Oh! Is managed by they're managed by Konami, and Konami has accelerated the power creep of the game so insanely because there is no community like restraint like there is that Commander has held on. Like people are like, well, why isn't Magic the Gathering like power crept like Konami has? I think it's in part due to the fact that Commander has this huge stake in Wizards of the Coast. And Wizards has to, even though they've kind of shown their ass on this a couple times, they have to show some restraint because if they lose the Commander fan base, they're cooked. They're cooked. They're beyond cooked. And it's part of why Paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Has died, essentially, because if you look at the prices for meta decks, they are so expensive because you have to buy the next set. You have to get 4 copies of every mythic rare in order to get your Snake Eyes engine up online, and then Konami won't ban the cards for years and years and years after until there's nothing else that can be done. And I worry that that's where Commander is going to go in as well. Like, the reason that there hasn't been this insane power creep of Magic the Gathering is, I think, in part to the Commander format. And now that it's out of our hands, I don't know. Yeah, there is GOAT format in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is a community-driven format, but that's from cards that have existed in the past. Part of the joy of Magic the Gathering is the fact that the game is still being pumped out and cards can find use that were printed years and years and years ago in the modern format when there's another card that's printed that just works with them, but not in a broken way. Yeah, 99 or a whole 50 work hours of, yeah, no, it's 999 USD for 4 packs of 20 cards, randomly selected proxies. You might get a Black Lotus. Yeah, but it's a chunk of cardboard that has no value. Like, if you look at the resale value of these things, Wizards tried to hype this up so crazy, and no one bought into it, fortunately, for the most part, because the community backlash was very intense. And I hope that Wizards will learn from that sort of thing. And maybe I should have faith that they will, but I don't know. I just don't know. So, but essentially that's where we land. Wizards they mentioned that they'll be communicating with the community in the coming days. They mentioned that there's talks about proposing a potential like new power system for the game where they would divide it into 4 brackets where your deck power is determined by the strongest card in your deck. So like certain cards would be tier 1s, and if your deck has any tier 1 cards, then it would be considered a tier 1 deck. The issue is that a lot of Commander is based around combos, and I don't think that well facilitates how powerful a deck can be, because you can build a very powerful deck on a very small budget. A card can be not tier 1, but in the right, the hands of the right commander, it can cause a game to be spiraled out of control simply because of the nature of the format and that consistency that having a card, an extra card that you are guaranteed to have in your hand at the start of the game provides. Let it out, Kiwi, let it out. I'm freaking out, Aurella. I'm freaking out. I wonder if my shout out command works. Everyone show some love to Aurella Soul. They're cool. They're cool. That one is way too early on to tell for sure, but a deck with one high power level card going up a tier seems wonky. Like, I get what they're going for. They're workshopping it right now. It's... I don't know. There's talks. I hope... another benefit that this has is now Commander can officially come to Magic Online, not Magic Online, but it can now officially come to Magic Arena because now it's managed under Wizards of the Coast. I think that's something that's really cool for someone like me, and if Wizards handles it well, that will be a really cool way for me to engage with that format once again online. However, I don't really, I think Magic Arena is really hard to grind for cards in. The only online card game that I would honestly recommend is Legends of Runeterra. If you haven't played Legends of Runeterra and you want to like play an online card game, I would highly recommend that you do it. It's free to play, free to pick up. The progression is very focused. They're very generous. And I mean, it's losing Riot Games money, but they're in it because of the passion. Yeah, Arena would need a complete UI designed to handle 4 players. It would, but there's potential for it now. That's the thing. So, anything could happen. The world is your oyster, Wizards of the Coast. The ball is in your court. But what is undeniable about this is that I think the community took this thing that we had for granted for far, far too long. Far too long. A community managed format that is more popular than the main game mode of a card game is a rarity. An insane rarity. A never will be seen again rarity, in my opinion. And for us to throw that away over threats, harassment, money, a couple bucks, is frankly unforgivable. For anyone who harassed or threatened the rules committee, you have caused ripples that will be felt for years in this game that has been treasured by so many. And I hope you will look back on your actions and realize that you have potentially ruined something for millions of potential fans. And we can't get that back. The Pandora's box has been opened. It's the same with the bans. It's the same with this. We can't go back. We can't take this back as a community. We can pressure Wizards. We can take our money elsewhere if we want, but we can't get Commander as a format back. We can make our own. We can make our own rules, but Commander as we know it has died today. Commander isn't dead, but Commander as we know it has stopped evolving as of today. This is a what do they call that in the Spider-Verse? This is a canon event. That's what that is. So we've reached our canon event of Magic the Gathering. The ball's in Wizards' court. What they will do, I don't know. How the community will react, I don't know. But I hope that people can recognize the importance of Commander and why it was so good to have it. I was working on a video for Commander and why I love the format so much. Because I do. I hope that you've felt the passion that I have for this format through my words that I've said today. Because it means a lot to me. I love card games, I love collectibles, and to have a format that I can share that love with individuals who may be less experienced is a treasure without value. A treasure beyond value. And I want to hope for the best for the format. But my hopes have been tested by Wizards of the Coast again and again, and we will see how it progresses from here. So that's my 2 cents. That's my rant. I mean, you could share, people have been sharing thoughts already. If you have anything else to say or any questions for me, feel free. But that's my hat in the ring. That's all I've got to say about it. I will hopefully continue to engage with Magic the Gathering in the future. As of now, I have basically decided to stop buying sealed product because until Wizards demonstrates that they can manage this huge responsibility that they've been bestowed upon, or that's been bestowed upon them. And we'll see. We'll see. I really... And use your Mana Crypt as a Sol Ring proxy. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Slowly looking into other formats you get into Pauper. Pauper's fun. I've experimented with Pauper Commander. Even just Pauper Commander is fun. But I think Pauper would be a really fun format to engage with. I am 100% down to look into that because, for those of you who aren't aware, Pauper is a format that uses only commons. So very easy to get into because most commons are very inexpensive. Because Wizards prints a crap ton of them, assuming that people are just going to throw them away. So that is to say, in anything that you enjoy, the community is an incredibly important aspect for people like me who enjoy collectibles, nostalgic things, card games. Every time that there is something that is an ever-evolving game, the community is an incredibly important aspect of it, and I hope that Wizards of the Coast doesn't miss that. And I don't know. That's it. That's all for me. I'm done yapping. Play Magic if you want. Look into Pauper if you want. Look into Legends of Runeterra if you want a card game that you want to play. I can't recommend Magic Arena because it's I think it's really tough to get into, and you'll get power crept out if you try to play Modern or Standard with the cards that it gives you. So I think that's BS. But I think Magic as a whole is a game that is worth playing and worth preserving, and I hope that Wizards continues to doesn't tarnish the legacy of a format that is groundbreaking in terms of card games. And I hope that other companies will try to replicate this. I really hope that multiplayer card games are something that other companies will try to look into, and I will support anyone that does. So, all right, I'll wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for joining, chatting, lurking, all of the above. A special thank you to Star the Femboy for the first time chat and for the Prime sub, and to Battle Bagel Pie for the 29 months. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support, everyone, for my silly little streams and my silly little channels. So, working on a couple videos right now. I've got long form videos brewing, and a short brewing as well. But I'm trying to kind of take it easy because I think I've been stressing myself out a little bit too much in the past days. So we'll see how that goes. But until next time, stay fresh, stay safe, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye!